and welcome to this next tutorial. In this video I'm going to go through doing some of the little details on this Poxwalker, some of the little things that you quite often see on Nurgle models. So we're going to be looking at doing boils. So you can see one here that I've already gone ahead and painted. Another one on the back here as an example. And then the other thing is the maggots, which are pretty easy, sort of straightforward guide on them. And then this pus leaking out of these big gaping pores here. So starting out, I want to tackle the boils. I've just chosen some of the larger sort of spherical shapes. There are a lot of little details on the model, but I'm just going to stick to these bigger ones for now, show you through how to do those. So I've given those, you can see the differentiation between the colour of the skin and the boils themselves. I've given them a coat of an equal parts mix of Hull Red and the Nocturna Imperial Purple. These two colours that I've used on the model already doing the skin. So just to keep things a bit consistent and keep the same kind of hues on the model, I've just gone with those. So really what we're trying to achieve here is something that's quite similar to what a gem would look like. So the look that I've wanted to go with is that they look like they're full of liquid, and hence why we're going with a look that's kind of like a gem. It's it's clear, it's transparent looking, and so yeah, we've got that same kind of look that you'd have with a gem, with the light hitting the top and refracting through the round object and sort of casting on the bottom of the boil there. I'll see if I can get it a bit closer. Yeah, so that's what we're going to try to achieve. So just over that base coat, I'm going to start using this guy here, Model Color Sunny Skin Tone. And you may be thinking that it's a huge tonal jump, which it is. This appears to be a lot lighter than the base coat is, and it's going to stand out a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we're going to glaze it, create a little transition with it, but we do want this highlight at the bottom here to be quite strong. So I like to sort of start with that there, just establish where that little bit of light is going to sit, and then glaze towards that. Afterwards we're going to use, I'll show you later, but there's this colour here that I really like, Chalice Red, to glaze over. And I've done that on this one here, obviously. It gives it that kind of magenta sort of look. And then that will be glazed, as you can see, around the edge of the boil as well on the skin. And it gives it that kind of inflamed sort of look. So building up those main areas there. Because it's a similar approach to doing the skin, we're creating that initial sort of strong highlight to establish where we're going to be working towards, and we come in later and glaze towards there and build that transition. Cool, so that's all of them, I think, that I've decided to go with. Oh, there might be this guy under here. So obviously the paint at the moment's kind of a layering consistency, so that I can just build up that opacity with it. And so now I'm just going with a bit more of a bit of a mess here, more of a glazing consistency. And as per usual with the glaze, just sort of wiping off most of the paint. And then just glazing towards the transition. Just going to get that a bit thinner. And just work on it slowly. As with any glazing work, it's going to take a few coats to build it up. But really the goal is just to soften that harsh edge on the that highlight that we laid out. Just really slowly with, tiny soft strokes, applying the transition. And in one sense, I'm not too phased if it doesn't look super smooth. It's kind of continuing with that theme of this guy being a Nurgle model. Not, he's not pretty. He doesn't need to be, have beautiful, smooth transitions and things like that. But also with this, because we're going to be glazing over later with another colour, it's going to help to hide some of our mistakes. And as I said, it is quite a large tonal jump between the base colour and the sunny skin tone, so it's going to be harder to get a nice smooth look to it. And I've totally missed this one down here. All right. So what I want to do now is just build up a bit more of a darker colour on the top. So this mix here is actually just the previous mix, the equal parts Hull Red and Imperial Purple with 1 part, a small amount of black mixed into it. And so what I'm going to do with that is just get a glazing consistency happening as well. And just apply that to the top of the boil, just to build that dark tone up the top there. Okay, so that's done there with introducing that darker tone. And I actually started the transition from a bit lower than I intended, just to take out a lot of that lighter transition. I thought it was coming up a bit too high, and now it's just kind of, I feel, giving it a better contrast. So now the next step is to introduce this Chalice Red, which is going to change the hue of it a lot, and it's going to give it, as I said, a bit more of a kind of magenta look. So I've got that as a consistency that's probably, a glazing consistency. Really, we're just going to slowly build up on top of what we've already done, so we don't want it to be thick, and we're working on it slowly, building up those layers. So you can see now that's just completely changed, and it's starting to look more like what we're wanting to achieve here. As I mentioned earlier, we want to glaze a bit of this colour around the skin areas around the boil, just to give it that kind of inflamed kind of look. Okay, so now the last thing that we're going to do on the boils is just re-establish some of those highlights. Doing that glaze over the top has knocked back those highlights that we've established on it. So we're just going to go back in with the sunny skin tone and just establish that highlight at the bottom there. And then, of course, what really makes this effect work is creating the highlight that's coming through from the top. So for that, I'm just using model color ivory and just doing a couple of dots on top. So you can see it gives it that shiny look that we're going for. I like to do more than one dot because it gives the impression that there's multiple light sources. Just looks a bit more natural. So yeah, that's that for them really. I'm pretty happy with that. And the only other thing that I might do is just line in with a darker tone here, mixing in a bit more black into that dark tone that we use to build up a bit more shadow on the boils, just to separate this sort of cluster here. Alright, so that's that. So now I'm just going to move on to doing the maggots, which will be a quite sort of straightforward little process for painting those. Alright, so this is pretty straightforward, this one, as I said. So what I've done is, on the maggots, I've just given them a bit of a base coat of reintroducing this dark colour here. The equal parts mix of Hull Red and Imperial Purple, plus a little bit of black. And then going over that, I've just got English uniform. And what I've done a little tester here, and this guy down here, is I've left a lot of that dark colour in the recesses, and I'm really just trying to just hit those little ridge sort of bits on the maggot. With the English uniform. There's this one up top here as well. Alright, and then it's just pale sand as the secondary highlight. So again, hitting the just on the ridge parts, and with this one keeping the highlight even shorter and smaller, just to sit on top of the English uniform that we've applied already. And that's that, really. Simple as that. Alright, so on to the pus now. As the last part of this tutorial. So I've switched over to an older brush because I'm going to be using some gloss varnish with this. And sometimes these can tend to sort of stick in the brush and wreck the bristles a bit. So using an older brush, and the colours that I'm using are golden olive and ice yellow. So just looking at the palette here, it's probably 3 parts ice yellow to 1 part of the olive. Just gives it a slight, probably even less than 1 part, to be honest, just to give it a slight green tinge to it. And then about 4 parts, following that ratio, 4 parts of the gloss varnish. We don't want this to flow too much because we want to be able to control it and manipulate it where we want it to go. I mean, as you can see with this one as an example, as I did earlier on, I've got it sort of running down past these boils here and sort of pulling a bit further down. It's a bit hard to see that on camera, I think. And I've just done a little bit more here, and I've got it kind of trickling down a little bit. So I'm probably going to go with this one first and show you guys that. So pretty straightforward as well, just letting it pool in there. Try not to get bubbles happening like just happened then. And then really just, like I said, manipulating it how gravity would, really. It's trickling down here, pulling on his little bit of cloth there, and then we might sort of bring it down as a streak. A thinner streak next to it as well. Just try and make it look as natural as possible. Some inside the maggot's mouth, just to make it extra gruesome. And yeah, because of the addition of the gloss varnish, obviously when this dries it will have a little sheen to it. We want it to have a wet look to it, so that should work quite well. So you can see that bubble in this one here, so it's just a matter of trying to pop it before it dries. It's not a big deal. As you can see there, I've just applied a bit more in there and it's pulled nicely in there. It's actually made it look fuller. Just have a bit of fun with it and just go with what seems natural. Okay, so that's it there with the pus dry or thereabouts. The only other thing that I did was over the top of the pus, just applied a bit of Agrax Earthshake gloss. Reason being that it kind of brings back some natural brown hues into it. It was looking a bit too kind of iridescent, I thought, like he had glowing pus or something. And it also, obviously because it's a gloss, it enhanced the glossiness a little bit, which is not all bad. So I am pleased to say that I think this guy is almost done. There may be some few touch-ups here and there, but that's pretty much it, and that's it for this tutorial. So I hope that helps out, and thank you again. Thanks for your support.